dream remains alive for the Houston Cougars. A furious comeback to knock off Duke and advance to the national championship game.
Here is Zion Chris, big hole, open sesame. Zion Chris, wow, the 72-yard house call.
Stick it in your pipe and smoke it, baby. Yes!
Welcome to the Scott and Holman podcast. A truly joyous occasion is upon us here as we record this show here in late August tonight. Week 1 of college football, the start of your Houston Cougar football season is literally, Bobby, less than 48 hours as we sit tonight recording. And oh yeah, we have a win over the Longhorns to talk about, something that is always a cause celebre in any sport that we field. Your soccer team did that on Sunday, a decisive win that Bobby and I are going to talk plenty about tonight, and a program near and dear to our hearts, Cougar Volleyball, is going to be starting their season as well at the end of this current week, a day after your football program, for a rare occasion, Bobby, where volleyball is the last of the three major sports start their season. We got plenty to talk about with them this year. Buddy, I know you were in the beautiful town where we both went to college, a town near and dear to our hearts, Houston. You're back in your home base, but sounds like you had a good weekend, and we got a lot of exciting things to talk about here tonight. How you doing, friend?
I am great. Yeah, it was a great weekend with a bunch of friends. Actually, a group of guys. A lot of them went to Houston's Blessed University, so we have a little bit of HBU.
Because it's never HBU in this podcast. It's HBU.
Yes, it will always be HBU here. Actually, when I'm around them, I love to call it HCU just to kind of get a little reaction out of them. But
wait, are they like anti? Do they think like me? It's just kind of stupid.
Yeah, no, like the whole idea is, it would be like it was.
They're still a Baptist university, right? Like,
yes. I think it's more of the his mama named him Cassius, so I'm gonna call him Cassius kind of deal there. Like, no, when we went here, it would be like if they suddenly changed University of Houston to like.
I get it. Yeah,
you know, when they tried to change UH downtown to City University, and we were all like, we know what that actually is.
Yeah,
it was kind of one of those situations. So, if they tried to take University of Houston from us and tried to call us like Southeast Texas, you know, or something.
Emergency podcast is happening also. Even if this is like after we've stopped regularly doing this, like I'd be like, Bobby, I think we need to dust off the microphones, see if Dustin has any availability to talk about this.
Yeah, it would be something obscene like that if we just changed it like that. We would always call it U of H. Like, it would never not be so.
Don't forget, if you don't do so already, please go to patreon.com/shpodcast. Support the work that Bobby and I do on a weekly basis. A number of off-season episodes that I think are still very current that you can get as part of that, in addition to just supporting the work that we do as a weekly independent Cougar podcast run by guys who have full-time jobs and stuff that otherwise requires their attention, but do this as a labor of love. So it's patreon.com/shpodcast. And we're going to lead with Cougar soccer tonight because, frankly, a win over the Longhorns always leads, but we promise we won't make you wait insanely long to talk about SFA. And here are a great guest on the SFA Jacks, our thoughts about week 1 and our new little pick-up segment. But got to talk about that win over the Longhorns, a demolition. And I think my co-host would agree here. A demolition is not overstating what the Cougars did to the Texas Longhorns on Sunday night at the Carl Lewis International Complex. The first head-to-head win in this series by the Cougars against the Horns since the 2000 season. The first ever win in regulation against the Horns, because that 2000 win was an overtime win as well. I watched 95% of this one live. I will explain the missing 5% a little bit, I promise. What stood out to me in this one was really from the first minute, U of H wasn't playing like a team that was trying to sit back and let the visiting big-name team have all the possession, maybe just trying to steal a chance here and there. U of H looked ready to attack from the opening whistle. But also you could see it admittedly in that first 20 minutes of the match, how amped the Cougars were. Right around the 10-minute mark, you started to see some shakiness in the back end, and the Horns were getting players behind the Cougar defense, had two really good chances in the first 10 minutes. One where the Cougs caught the Horns caught Cougar keeper Alexi Gonzalez, who was making her first start in the program, off her line. You actually thankfully had veteran defender Alex Whitcraft in the right place to block a shot in an otherwise wide open net. Kept the game scoreless, but unfortunately, a couple minutes later, Amalia Villarreal, by far the Horns' most dangerous attacking player, was able to get behind the Cougar defense and slotted in a one-on-one to put the visitors up 1-0. But you didn't see the Cougars fade after the Horns went up. And that goal was really about the last of the visitors getting any dangerous chances in the first half. Ben Williams, the head coach, said it at halftime and in the postgame. After that goal, you saw the Cougs start to play a bit calmer, looked a bit more composed, and started following their game plan. I think was what Williams said more specifically. And if you can credit any one player, besides Alex Whitcraft, who might have saved you from going down 2-0 early in this one, for really changing the momentum of this match in the first half, about 10 minutes from halftime, you saw the Cougars start to get into the game more, but about 10 minutes from halftime, sophomore Amanda Adams came on for Adalia Gonda, and no attacking player gave the Horns more fits all night consistently than Adams. Just constant runs down the side towards the goal that you just saw the Horns defenders really struggle to deal with. And you more generally saw after the first hydration break, you saw the Cougars growing into the game. You had two really good chances before halftime that unfortunately you just couldn't convert. But in real time, was obviously disappointed the Cougars were trailing 1-0. But at no point did I think that the Cougars looked outclassed. Bobby, you were out of town and unable to watch it live. Now that you've gotten a chance to watch it, do you agree with what I texted you at halftime that essentially the Cougs really weren't playing badly at that point, despite trailing 1-0 at the half?
Yeah, I think at halftime, it arguably could have been 2-0.
Yeah.
I think you saw the pressure from UT. The commentators talked quite a bit about that pressure and how their front line was going to be attacking the defense and not letting them get off easy passes. And you saw that. But what you also saw was the Cougs really kind of holding them off and building up a lot of good attacks. Maybe not attacks that led to big time scoring chances or anything like that, but definitely led to some runs and led to some open field building up out of that back line. And what you ended up seeing is, kind of moving into the second half a little bit here, what you ended up seeing was UT kind of backing off that attack and really starting to go, hey, maybe we can't pressure these guys as much as we kind of wanted to kind of get these defenders, because it really seemed like Texas, what they try to do is get the defenders rattled. You get a bonehead play, you make a lazy pass, you make a quick pass trying to get to try to get the ball out quickly, and you maybe miss it a little bit, hit it a little bit, cause a turnover, and you score. And you just saw the Cougs really not doing that. And in the first half, you really saw them kind of playing out of the back really well and forcing UT to just kind of lay back and maybe not attack as much. You saw from the goalkeeper, our goalkeeper really playing a couple of nice balls that were at her feet and just making some good plays. So first half, I thought the Cougs kind of just held on to what they kind of took a couple of body punches from Texas, in that maybe it should have been 2-0. You can make that argument, but it wasn't. It was 1-0 headed into the half. So I think you weren't playing a typical, this team is better than us, we're going to park the bus and just try to hold possession and not give up a big goal.
I'll also explain briefly here the 5% didn't watch live, which leads into how the Cougars took the lead and won this game. With all respect to the ESPN crew on the broadcast, I wasn't super interested in watching whatever the halftime programming was, so I finished my laundry for the weekend and put on the first round of the U.S. Open, the last tennis major of the year. And I had it in my brain that 5:15 I needed to go back to ESPN Plus, get second half, but I started getting finished with the laundry and I looked at my phone and it was 5:20 and was like, oh shit, I've missed the start of the second half. I frantically put back on the ESPN app. Right as I'm opening the U of H UT game feed in the ESPN app, Cameron Maddox is slotting home a penalty. And at the moment, I don't even look at the scoreboard. I'm like, all right, cool. Let me text Bobby. Like, the Cougars tied this up with like 4 minutes ago. And then I look at the scoreboard and it's already 2-1 Cougars with still under 4 minutes played in the second half at that point. And at the point you're up 2-1 on a big name team, maybe you as a fan, maybe you get a little nervous thinking, can we hold this lead for another 40 minutes? And not just because of the fact that, spoiler alert, we added on to that 2-1 lead. I never really felt nervous watching this in real time, Bobby. The Cougars, even after they went up 2-1, it's not like you saw their game plan change dramatically and you saw them back significantly off. They were doing the exact same stuff they were doing when they were down 1-0. Obviously, I've rewatched the first 4 minutes since the Cougars got their equalizer, of course, via Amanda Adams making a nice attacking run down the side. She found Morgan Donahue, midfielder, part of that SFA transfer contingent. And you saw, I don't think the Horns, even after the Cougars took that 2-1 lead, won a single 50-50 ball until maybe the very end of the second half when they were starting to get into full desperation mode. And you saw the Cougs maybe start to sit back a little bit up 3 goals. But honestly, even at 4-1, you still, like, the Cougars got at least one chance that I think there, it was, I believe it went to Cameron Maddox, your penalty score, that I think Cameron Maddox is probably a little pissed that she missed. Like this, yes, you could have been down 2-0 early, but with some of the misses in addition to the 4 goals you got, Bobby, this could have been 6-1. I don't think I'm saying like anything crazy. I think like the Cougars could have gotten a couple more goals than what they ended up putting on the board. It's not an exaggeration to say, in the broadest terms, the Cougs absolutely wore the Longhorns' asses out.
Yeah, you could see how tired the Longhorns just looked in the Cougs. And granted, after it gets to be 3-1, a lot of that is your team's riding high on the momentum and they're having fun, and the other team's just simply not. Plus the Heat played this game at a weird kind of time of day, but that's also because, your
conditioning, by the way, you looked like the better conditioned team.
Yeah, but school started the next day for U of H, so it would make sense that everyone kind of wanted to get this game kind of over with on a Sunday, get everyone ready for class, things of that nature. But all that being said, the Cougs just looked really, really good in this game. Super excited. After that first game, one of the things you and I talked about was that it seemed like that front line, the Cougar front line, just didn't quite have all their communication down. There wasn't that trust that my teammate's going to be where I would need my teammate to be. And buddy, this game, it looked like you kind of had it down this game. It wasn't perfect. There were a couple of plays where, you saw somebody pass one in the midfield and then it just kind of sat there for a second. Like you saw a couple of Cougars just kind of looking at each other like who's going to get it, but they kind of fixed it. But I think overall, it's hard not to get excited for this win. This Texas team probably isn't what everyone thought it was going to be heading into the season. They haven't looked like the most incredible team, these world beaters. But I mean, they did take a draw with a conference foe in Arizona State. You're going to see them versus TCU. This is going to be a great bar to see where the Cougs actually end up and where they could be. I think just based off the this game against this opponent, you kind of feel like you're already on board with Ben Williams, and you're kind of going, okay, he's kind of taking us in a place we haven't been in a very long time, if ever, with this program.
Beyond the fact that you beat the Horns 4-1 and the exciting goals, what excited me most from this one is that every single Cougar player on the field had insanely good work rate. The kind of work rate you only see, regardless of sport, from a team that is 100% whole hog bought into what their coaches are selling and are willing to give every ounce for the name of their jerseys, for that staff. Like, that's not cliched. Like, that's fired me up so much watching like the Cougars even up 4-1, winning those 50-50s, being the first one to the ball every time, running their asses off, even again with a multi-goal lead. Because the visitors in this one were by far the more talented team, but you could also see the fact that the Cougars have a lot of players who have played a lot of college soccer in the field, and UT has a lot of like really highly rated recruits, but you saw the way these two teams responded to adversity and the way the Cougars dealt with a 1-0 lead and the way the Horns kind of came apart in the second half. And I mentioned the goals after the 2-1. Blake Hodgson hit her first college goal, kind of an unintentional one, though I would point out it was a cross that floated into the very top right corner of the goal. You want to say something?
No, I would. It's kind of one of those things where, yeah, I don't think she meant to do it, but I think she'll go to her grave saying she meant to do it.
and I would also add, if it was a cross, which I think we both honestly believe this was initially intended to be a cross, if that cross had been closer to target, Adelia Gonda was running free right at the goal. So if that cross is on target, it might end up being, I think, a goal regardless. Either way, great unintentional goal. And then in the 70th minute, your captain, KK Kaiser, who had previously mixed it up with UT striker Ava McDonald in the first half, earning both players yellows. Is a great still of like McDonald looking pretty agitated and Kaiser kind of smirking from the game. She well and truly turned this one into a laugher. Samira Minor found her on a breakaway and finished the one-on-one just inside the box. You saw even up 4-1, we've both, I think, alluded to it. The Cougs were still periodically getting forward. Cameron Max, I think if you gave her truth serum, would say she probably should have gotten a fifth one in the final 10 minutes on a really good look. We'll note Amelia Villarreal on the horns had a nice, dangerous attacking move that looked like she had cut to 4-2, but was reviewed and correctly called and offsides. I will note some of the players who did not score goals, but I think did really awesome stuff in this one. Can't overstate what an incredible job Amanda Adams did when she came on as a first half sub and then getting the Cougar offense on the board in the early stages of the second half. Haven't name checked her yet. Jocelyn Chinea, in the second half, I think more than any one player might have exemplified the awesome work rate we've both talked about here. It was 60-something minutes in. The Cougars were up 3-1. She missed maybe an inch to the right of the goal on a nice run. Like, good look. I don't think it was a sitter. Like, it was a decent look. Like, definitely one she should have shot from, but one she probably wants back there. Not a minute later, she's at the other end of the field making critical defensive plays on, I think, what was one of the Horns' few real serious attacking moves of the second half. I think more than any one player helping prevent this from becoming a 3-2 game and maybe giving the Horns some life and some energy in this one before Kaiser got the fourth goal, and this was well and truly a runaway. Alex Whitcraft, it sounds like, is going to have to play a bit more centrally because of injuries there, but as we expected in the preseason, as we saw from her in the opener against UTSA, she's the absolute defensive engine behind. I think it was another really nice game in the back for the Cougs. As much as she's shown herself to be a dangerous player when she plays kind of on the wing and doing more wide runs, it is really, really valuable that you have a veteran, versatile defender like Alex on this roster, who, it can't be overstated, potentially kept you from going down 2-0 early in this game with that goal line clearance she had. Also, I want to say, along the lines of the defense, I thought the new starting keeper, Lexi Gonzalez, in the defense looked like they had some communication issues early in this one, first 15, 20 minutes of the game, but that got better as the game went on. And one thing that really stood out to me is something you said, how accurate and reliable she was in goal kicks. I think we were both a bit surprised she was starting over Maggie Manning, because Maggie Manning started the year with 2 clean sheets, but it does sound like, at least from the TV broadcast, that Gonzalez was the number one keeper out of camp and then just didn't start the first 2 games due to health reasons. I mean, every player who took the field for the Cougs Sunday night deserves a ton of credit, whether you're a soccer fan or not. This team left every damn thing on the field, and if you can't appreciate that as a Cougar fan, I question whether you really love the Cougs.
Yeah, it was really, really impressive. And like you said, the work rate that they showed was just crazy. I think it was the third goal, maybe the fourth goal, where the UT player was just kind of trying to shield the ball, let it go out of bounds, kind of take a little bit of a breather, I guess you could say. And the Cougs just outworked him, beat him to the sideline, beat her to the sideline, kept the ball in bounds, broke free, got a break, pass it up, got a breakaway, and scored the goal there to kind of just put it out of reach. It never felt like that this game was, once the Cougs got on the board, they made the penalty to make it 2-1. You kind of thought Texas was going to kind of come with a counterpunch, and they just never did. Like, it never felt like you got that big counterpunch from Texas. A lot of the second half, it really seemed like the ball was more in the UT half versus the Houston half. When UT did get a possession in their own half, a couple of them got dangerous, but nothing too dangerous, nothing that made you go, oh my God, except for the goal that was called back, but that was rightfully called back. I think everyone kind of agreed there. And by the time that goal happened, it kind of felt like this game was over.
Yeah, even at that point, like that UT would have to be overturning a 2-goal deficit in less than 10 minutes. Not impossible. Unfortunately, we saw at least a couple of Frias era teams not defend some pretty big late leads, but the way the Cougars were playing, like, even I was very happy it was 4-1 because that truly allowed me to relax. But I think even at 4-2, I would have felt pretty confident about the Cougars' ability to see this out.
Yep.
I will not rain on this parade one iota. I will just say factually, there's going to be probably 3 teams on the Big 12 schedule, TCU, BYU, and probably Tech, who are almost certainly going to be better than the Longhorns this season. Man, you always talk about, I don't really know soccer that much. You name check the TCU game they have this week, which I'm also kind of interested to see, like, how they stack up against the best team of the Big 12 later this week as well. But that still doesn't mean this win isn't a big fucking deal. U of H has
Right.
won 4 conference games in the last 3 years, has never made an NCAA tournament in well over 20 years of existence. This is a momentum shifting win. I love seeing the team celebrating and throwing a few horns down after the full-time whistle. I loved seeing how much UT's coach clearly didn't like Ben Williams, and the next day when he was doing media availability, Williams making it clear that he didn't
Which
like
is
them
so
either.
odd. It's so odd that they don't like each other, and I don't know this history behind it because, like, Ben Williams was a pretty influential coach in high school, in Texas high school soccer. So it's like, or
ECNL,
club
but
soccer.
yeah, club soccer.
Club soccer. So it's like, you would think she would want to like Ben Williams, and he would, you know.
I mean, it's very clear, obviously. I mean, you know, in the timetable on it, UT was willing to give us a home and home because we were a fucking joke under Jaime Frias.
Yes.
And it's like, okay, yeah, we'll go to Houston, but we'll go to Houston against a team that is terrible and allow our Houston area players to maybe get a game in front of family. They weren't bargaining for what they got. It kind of reminded me, you'll know this comparison. It reminded me of when Kentucky under Gillespie had to finish off the series they had against us, which had been very much scheduled because of Tubby Smith and Penders being boys.
Yes.
Billy Gillespie did not want to play that game at U of H. And that was another joyous night 20-something years ago. Or no, 18 years ago. God,
yes,
we're
sir.
old.
Yeah, we're getting there, buddy. We're getting there.
Real quick, Cougs will only play one match this week. They will host UL Monroe on campus next weekend. The Warhawks are 2-2 this season, but lost their most recent match 5-0 to UAB. Not saying that if U of H doesn't top that 5-0, this is a failure, but this is a team that even not very good previous Cougar teams we would have very much expected to beat, and certainly the current one should beat probably by multiple goals. And Bobby, let's go from football to the gridiron because Houston Cougar football is back, baby. Week 1 of college football is back. We are obviously very, very excited about both these things. Your Cougars will be opening on Thursday night at home against the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks. One of our big offseason goals, and I'll give my co-host credit for really helping make this happen, was to go back to bringing on opponent-specific guests most, if not all weeks this football season where we record a pod, the kinds of guests who can provide greater insight into the team your Cougars are about to face. So let's hear a good friend of ours now tell us about the SFA Lumberjacks. We are thrilled to have joining us for the first time on the Scott Holm podcast tonight, Dustin Helton, SFA alum, FCS Fans Nation podcaster, genuinely, I would say, one of the most expert people both on the SFA Lumberjacks and just Division I FCS football. Dustin, great to have you for the first time. How you doing tonight?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on here. Love the show. I listen to it because you guys are right up the road. So got to follow local football too.
Appreciate that. I figured this would be a good starting point. Keep it simple. What are reasonable expectations among SFA fans for what the 2025 team can achieve?
So it's weird because last year we could have been an FCS playoffs team. And when we talk about like Sam Vidlac, our quarterback, him going out and getting injured halfway through or 2/3 of the way through the year, it really cost us the playoffs. We would have probably been a 9-win team without him being injured. So I think the expectations for us this year is to make the playoffs. We've made it once in the past 5 years with our current coach. And there's discussion on if he's on the hot seat this year because of, not making the playoffs, not performing. But I mean, he's also has over a 500 record. So it's really hard to fire a guy who has a winning record. But I think that at least for us, our expectation is to make the playoffs. It's the year to do it with the players we have.
All right, so you actually just led us into our next conversation, considering the fact that, the Jacks football program has played in 3 different conferences since 2019, the Southland, the WAC, the United Athletic Conference, and now you guys are back to the Southland. How much patience has Colby Carthel earned from the decision makers and fan base, given some of that kind of off the field instability around the program and SFA athletics in general?
I think he's gotten more patience from the administration now. We had a new AD come in last year from West Texas A&M, and he and Carthel have known each other because Carthel coached at East Texas A&M whenever it was, or whenever it was still A&M Commerce, but it was D2. So they have a relationship. So I think there's been a bit of patience there. But yeah, there's been a lot of changes. When SFA left the Southland was a dumpster fire. Under the old commissioner, nothing was happening there. And it wasn't SFA who left. Sam Houston left. Lamar was leaving. Incarnate Word was going to leave and then backed out. There was a huge exodus. And then the WAC couldn't deliver on their bill of goods when it came to football. And that was a problem. And so SFA lost money every year. I mean, granted, if you break even as a FCS school, you're doing good, but SFA lost a few $1 million each year. So moving back to the Southland is a cost savings thing. It was a local conference. You can bus instead of plane, and it's great on paper for the fans, though. It is a bit different to go from having like your basketball tournament in Vegas to now having your basketball tournament in Lake Charles. That's an adjustment. But at least for football, it's good. Historic rivals, schools that don't like each other. So I think, at least in a football sense, it's kind of nice to see it back in the Southland.
One of the things that really stood out to me when I was kind of putting together my preview notes for SFA was how many close losses the Jacks suffered last season. You could attribute, I think, a decent chunk of that to something you mentioned in the first question, the injury to Sam Vidlak. Besides that, as much as any one thing can be blamed for causing that, why do you think last year's SFA team struggled like that in close games? And do you believe the 2025 team is better equipped to turn some of those 50-50 games into wins and being a playoff team, which that's kind of the expectation?
Yeah, we had a lot of transfers in last year. We actually have quite a bit this year. So I think there was some gelling there. I think there was some maturity also that needed to happen, especially with Vidlak at quarterback. I mean, he did play at Montana the year before and did not do well. There were some coaching decisions, some calls that were very questionable, but as the season went on, SFA got better, and then losing your starting quarterback and the backup just wasn't there. I mean, our defense kept us in games. It's just the offense didn't have enough to get the win. But we bring back just about everybody from the offense this year. So they've got another year under their belts. They're all mature. And that's what I think helps. Also, we bring back a lot of our defensive studs. And I think that's the difference. That was what would make us a playoff team. And already the Southland is kind of turned upside down with results from last week. So now is the opportunity for SFA to win the conference and do it.
Okay, so looking at the potential matchups in this one, ones that could cause heartburn for us. The Jacks returning quarterback wide receiver tandem of Sam Vidlak and Kylan Harris against the Cougars secondary with multiple first-year starters. We lost some guys to transfers. That's definitely one of those heartburn-inducing matchups. What do you think is the ceiling for what those two can achieve now in a second year of playing together?
I mean, so Vidlak was on the Walter Payton Award watch list last year. Kylan Harris is a first-team All-American. He should probably be on the watch list as we go through the season. A few years ago, SFA had a great wide receiver quarterback tandem in Trey Self and Xavier Gibson. Xavier Gibson now plays for the Jets. And that was a very potent offense, but didn't have the defense behind it. I think now you have easily a 3,500 to 4,000 yard quarterback this year in Sam Vidlak, especially with the offense is going to be set up. Harris should be a 1,000-yard receiver. I think it's going to be just a very high-powered offense with those two. And then, of course, the running game has always been kind of questionable a little bit. We had a good running game last year, but it wasn't top-notch. But now bringing in Reese from Baylor as a transfer in to head the backfield, that just adds another weapon on our offense.
So we'll go to the other side of the ball. We've talked about it a little bit here. My surface level analysis, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, of the 2024 SFA season was good defense that was at times let down by its offense, some part at least quarterback injury there, which is something us Cougar fans can relate to, though I would say for its level, SFA's offense was much better than the Cougars. Do you think SFA can equal their 2024 defensive production, or is this a situation kind of like what U of H is dealing with, where the offense is going to likely have to cover for at least some defensive regression in the coming season?
Well, so last year SFA was 9th in the FCS in scoring defense. It was a high-powered defense, and they bring back a lot of the weapons. They bring back Ed Bobino, who is a giant. I met him at Media Day last year, and I felt tiny compared to him. They've got Charles Demings, who was he could be pro, honestly, as a cornerback. He's got to be a pro prospect at the end of this year. So with Aaron Austin, Jalen Southard at linebacker, like there's a lot of weapons that we are bringing back. And so I'm hoping that it's not the case where the defense is going to keep us in games and we have to have the offense, come in last minute win. I'm hoping that the offense is what drives us and the defense keeps the score where it should be. because that's what you want to see. And the fact that they're 9th in the FCS and bringing back what they had, I mean, it's a huge, huge opportunity for them.
So you've shouted out a couple of guys here, but this is a question we tried to consistently ask over the years of our many decorated guests. Which SFA player do you think we're likely overlooking in our preview work on this team? And who do you think will have a noticeable impact on Thursday night's game?
That's a really good question. I'm thinking you got to look at some of the wide receivers, right? You got to look at Neighbors, for example, or Blaine Green. Like, these are their second and third guys that I think Kylan Harris is going to get most of the attention. This is the opportunity for them to have a solid game. Also, too, the line, we brought back 4 of the 5 starters. Nate Adams transferred to South Dakota State as a transfer, but Robert Keller could have a huge game. Jake Henry could have a huge game as well. They're the protection that Vidlac needs against, I would assume, especially because Willie Fritz is coaching the Cougars, that it's going to be a blitzing heavy defense, and that's what SFA is going to have to protect against. Willie Fritz was great at Sam at doing that, at wreaking havoc on defense whenever he coached there. So, that I think the line play is going to be the key. But then, look at the second and third wide receivers, because I think Kylan Harris is going to be the focus of the Cougars defense.
So acknowledging that the overarching goal anytime a team steps in the field is to win the football game, not really groundbreaking stuff there. What are the most important things that you believe SFA's players and coaches need to learn about themselves from this game to set themselves up well for a season where I think the expectation you've said a couple times is to get to the playoff and to try to win this league?
Yeah. Well, honestly, SFA needs to pull the upset. And the reason why is their rest of their out of conference schedule is very weak this year. And unless they run the Southland, it's going to be very hard to get an at-large bid if they take a bad loss or two. That's what's going to help, because they have a sub D1 and Sol Ross coming in. We've got Cal Poly coming in. They really need to get the scalp, as we like to say. But honestly, I think for playing a top-notch program, playing for a lot of these guys, a local program, right? There's a lot of folks in the Houston area getting to go home, play there. I think that's just the opportunity to compete up. Iron sharpens iron. And so I think going up against a team like the Cougars, going against stud athletes and seeing what you can do, I think that's only going to help as the year goes on. But, usually when we look at a FBS versus FCS game on our level, we're like, hey, we're getting a paycheck sort of thing, right? But this is one where SFA really, really needs to pull an upset somehow, because it's only going to help them with their playoff resume, because, like I said, their schedule is pretty soft.
All right, so acknowledging all that, while we have you here, that's probably all of our questions about the actual matchup. But while we have you here, you got 2 guys here who are just college football freaks, and we'll watch pretty much any college football that you can put in front of us. And we also encourage our listeners to be college football freaks, not just University of Houston freaks. And since you cover the Division I FCS level and do a podcast on the subject, what are some regular season games, not playoff games, because obviously we don't know what those will look like, but what are some regular season FCS matchups that you think we should work into our Saturday rotation of games that'll be really compelling football, in your opinion?
Some of my favorites to watch. I mean, I think FCS is some of the best rivalries that folks haven't ever looked at. There's something for Brawl the Wild, Montana State. That's heard of. The Dakota Marker, which is North Dakota State, South Dakota State. That's well known. But one of my favorite ones is another Southland one. It is Nicholls State and Southeastern Louisiana in the Battle for the River Bell. It's a Thursday night game, usually the last week of the season in November. And that is one of the games where you throw out the record book, because the team that you would expect to win usually doesn't. And that game gets just gritty. This weekend, locally for me, Prairie View and Texas Southern play. Always a fun game to watch.
Labor Day Classic. Labor Day Classic.
Yep. And then also the HBCU side, North Carolina Central and South Carolina State later on in the year. That's going to decide the MEAC and who goes to Celebration Bowl. I think you just got to look at some of the great rivalry games. I mean, we got the Ivies too. So you got Harvard Yale in there. You've got there's just quality football at this level that I think just gets overshadowed, because in the state of Texas, FCS football's not even 3rd tier. It's 4th tier if you really think about it. Right. And so I think if you're just going through and you see some random FCS teams on your guide or on your ESPN Plus, go hit it, go watch, go see, because it's not, to me, it's not the same as it was a few years ago. Like the talent level, honestly, between some of the G5 FBS schools and FCS is not that far off because of the transfer portal. I think you're going to see more parity in the competition there. And so this is an opportunity to watch some folks who, they have a good year. They may become Cougars next year. They may move up and transfer. You never know. So it's a good way to watch and to just enjoy football. Because, I will watch any game that's on. I'll watch D3 if I can find it on in some way, shape, or form. So, yeah, definitely check those out. Check out the good FCS rivalry games. Check out the HBCUs also. It's just fun football to watch.
You might appreciate this. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I've at least kicked the tires because Flagstaff's about a 3.5-4 hour drive from my house. I've debated going down to I believe the Sky. Is it? They call it the Sky Dome.
It's the walk-up Sky Dome.
And then seeing NAU for a home game there. Something like that. I don't know if I'm going to do it this year, but next couple of years, at least while I'm living in this part of the country, I do it. Great stuff, Dustin. Really enjoyed having you on. Your insights into FCS football and, of course, our week one opponent, SFA. Where can the folks listening find you and the work you do on the World Wide Web?
Yeah, so I do host a podcast. Usually do it live because I enjoy getting the questions that pop in, but it's on the FCS Fans Nation YouTube and their network. It's called the Southland Sermon with the Rev because my nickname is the Rev, and you find me on Twitter as the Rev SFA. But we go through the Southland. Also, every now and then I pop in on the FCS Fans podcast, which is every Sunday night. Usually fill in for one of the guys when they're out of town. But other than that, you can see me just about hating on every other FCS team on social media because I do hate every other team equally. So I will constantly rib on people. I've been called the best hater in FCS by a few people, so I'm proud of that. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for, letting us talk. I'm a little bummed I'm going to miss this game because of work. I had to actually give away my tickets, but that's all right. I'm going to try to watch it from where I'm at. So I think it'll be a good one.
So big thanks to Dustin, really nice guy. And I think Bobby and I, now for doing that, are much more knowledgeable about the Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks. Ultimately, I don't think I'm being disrespectful to the opponent saying this game shouldn't be that competitive. I've said this to you in our conversations at least a couple times during the offseason. I think usually when we're not in front of microphones, that I like that we get to enjoy week one of the college football season without as much stress as some of maybe the previous week ones that we've had here. Obviously, excited that the remaining 11 games of the regular season are all against varying degrees of better opponent, but I also like that we get to enjoy a pretty tasty looking week one college football slate, in all likelihood without having to stress too much about our specific game and the Cougars doing. Frankly, last season's U of H team could have used this as a week one game instead of a group of 6 team in UNLV that it was obvious afterwards was pretty ravenous to kick ass and take names out of the gate to establish themselves as a team to watch last season.
Yeah,
I think
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, starting with UNLV versus SFA, big difference here. Sorry.
It is. Ironically, with I think a team, I'm not saying we would have 100% beaten 2024 UNLV with this current team. That was a very good football team, but ironically, the team much more equipped to handle UNLV. We're going to be getting a little bit less of a test. I think the big challenge for all of us, fans, podcasters like Bobby and me, is not to get over on our metaphorical skis if U of H wins this game by a really big margin. Like SFA is a good FCS team. If U of H somehow, and I'm not predicting this, but if U of H somehow puts up a video game score, I'm not saying you need to change your season outlook, but you can feel pretty good about that. One of my biggest pet peeves from the various non-U of H people we follow and people who cover like us largely a single program is when that team has an FCS opponent and the timeline becomes a deluge of, wow, the offense looks really good. It's like, yeah, man, you should. I think what comes to mind here is the various OU people we follow when they were playing Missouri State. I think it was 4 years ago. It's just like, buddy, shut the fuck up. You're Oklahoma. Stop subjecting us to dozens of tweets about you being up 7 to 8 scores in this game. And we'll say, kind of like I alluded to, not all FCS opponents are created equal. Sam Vidlak and Kylan Harris. That's a really good pass catch combo, Bobby, going against a very new secondary that the Cougars are going to be running out there. That gives me a little heartburn. That SFA defense was very good for their level. The SFA defense was probably better last year than at least Rice defensively. So like this isn't going to be a body bag opponent, but also I'm still fairly confident this is a 4 or 5 score, probably more like 4 Cougar win when it's all said and done. And I'm very excited to see this team out there. And I think, I think we're going to see some things where it's just like, oh my God, like we're going to see some things and think, okay, this could be a question mark. And I'm not calling my shot here, but maybe I think maybe SFA will be able to do some stuff in the passing game against this still fairly new secondary with a new defensive coordinator and all that jazz. But I think we're going to also see some stuff in the passing game with Connor Wigman where it's just like, oh my God, I haven't seen a quarterback throw a pass like that since at least Clayton Tune. Like, I think we're going to have at least a few of those on Thursday night. So I'd say for better or for worse, this game shouldn't change anyone's opinion in any real top line way of the 2025 Cougar football team. But also, I'm glad this isn't a stressful matchup like the one last year ended up being.
Yeah, man, the opener's always tough to preview. Like, when it's an FCS team, it's even harder. I think this should be a solid FCS program, one that's probably competing for a playoff bid. You really hope.
It sounds like that's the expectation from Dustin. Yeah.
Yeah. You really hope for their sake that they are competing for that bid. That'd be kind of cool just for their program in general. This isn't a program that I have like any ill will towards or anything like that. Like, you want to see SFA do well, like, it's fine. But you do have an exciting receiver quarterback combo, like you said. It'll be a decent test for the rebuilt Cougar secondary. I think it's dangerous enough that the Cougs can't exactly sleepwalk through it, which is kind of something you want in that first game. Like, you don't want it to be so dangerous like UNLV where there's a good chance you lose, but you want them to have to pay attention, right? This will also be a look for this will be a test for a new look Cougar offense, to your point. Again, are we going to get excited if you're up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 scores? No, like, you should know this. I think the Cougs are going to be able to win this game and keep it fairly vanilla. You would hope that we're not going to go too deep into the bag here. But if SFA is getting some pressure, we'll certainly raise some red flags. We may not be able to tell how good this offense is, but if it struggles against SFA, we might be able to tell how bad it is, right? Like, you can't make the playoff in week 1, but you can lose your playoff bid in week 1. Not saying that like we have any expectations for the playoff, but like, we could learn a lot from this game and it won't be good. Like, if we're learning a lot from this game, something terrible has happened. Okay.
If we're up 8 scores, I'm not going to be like, oh, we're making the playoff. But if we're up 8 scores on SFA, I'd be pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, I'd be stoked. At the same time, I'm not going to say we're winning the Big 12 this year. Right. So those were kind of some of my initial thoughts. Sam, do you got anything else before I go and we talk about the 2 Deep that kind of released a couple of days ago?
Go for it, bud.
All right. Well, 2 Deep, the first place I ran to, right, as you can imagine from...
It's a Monday morning tradition of the first game week. Oh, it's so exciting.
Oh, yeah. The first thing I looked at, the first position group I looked at, Sam, could you imagine which one I have looked at? I've only talked about it for 12 months now, about how concerning this position group was.
I think you went to kicker and kickoff specialist. You really wanted some closure on Ethan Sanchez and Zach Yoakum battling it out there.
Hey man,
or
that
Jonathan
was a battle.
Demas.
That was a battle that we were talking about in camp, but no, it was actually the offensive line. I loved seeing the consistency to what we saw a few weeks ago. You had Ebasole is going to be left tackle, Brooks at left guard, Pancake Hunter in the middle, Wyckoff at right guard, and Merriman at right tackle. I really like this lineup. They've seemed to have been playing together for a couple of weeks. Look like you got Ebasole on the left side. It pretty much matches up to what we saw from our friends over at Go Cougs. A couple of weeks ago. So a good amount of experience on this line. If you kind of look at everyone's a transfer except for Pancake, I believe. Did I get that right? I'm like, now I'm questioning myself, but I'm pretty sure that's correct.
Ebasole's from Baylor, Brooks is from Oak State, Wyckoff's from Cal, and Merriman's from Tech.
Yes. I had it like in my notes, but I was like, that doesn't feel right, but it's right. So you have your returning starter at center. He's going to be able to direct people. Really excited about this line. The amount of experience on this line is really exciting. You have a guy who's played with Wigman before. Really clear that this staff knew what they wanted in the transfer portal and that they hit on the transfer portal, or at least believe they hit in the transfer portal. I think if you see a couple, 3 of these O-line positions being handled by by returning guys or something like that, maybe you get a little concerned. But the fact you brought in all these transfers and 4 of them are starting game 1 really gives you some hope that this this staff really got what they wanted out of this offensive line. Another thing that kind of caught my eye, I don't know if you noticed this, Ebisole's like info on the depth chart was wrong, so I wonder if somebody else was supposed to be in there or what happened, because they had him listed as a redshirt freshman. They had him at like 6'9", 315.
6'3", 315. I'm looking at right now.
Yeah, 6'3", 315, whereas
Clearly
on the
not
website,
his measurements.
yeah, and I'm pretty sure he was like 6'6", 312 on the website or something like that. So that was kind of interesting. Another thing I kind of noticed, and this is kind of my last two thoughts, is Jesus Machado wasn't on the 2 deep. Is he still out? Is he injured?
Good question. We don't get the injury report until I think it was week 3. I saw.
Yeah, so I think
it's
that
probably be an open question until someone out there who's closer to the program gets an answer or attempts to.
Yeah, because you're heading into the season. In our preview, we talked about Jesus Machado quite a bit actually, and what we thought he was going to bring. Not see him on the 2 deep does make you raise an eyebrow. Going, is there still the injury? What's going on here? Is he having a bad camp? Is he like something? Is it conditioning? It could be a bunch of things. It could be we want to get some guys out there because you're playing SFA. It could be that, but I wouldn't see how you would want a guy who's coming off an injury like Jesus Machado is to be out on the field. Also, I don't know if you know this, freshman Chance Bryant made the 2 deep as the Sam starter.
That was my first thing I mentioned if you didn't bring it up, yeah.
Yeah, he was the only guy on the Sam linebacker spot as well, so there wasn't another. That makes me think that maybe the same position won't be used very often. If you look at the defensive depth chart, there are 12 positions listed, so it would make sense that maybe he's not out there as much.
Yeah, it's probably a situational thing.
Yeah, but having a true freshman come in and be able to start, that's something you don't see very often from a program like ours. It really speaks to where the recruiting is happening with this program. It's getting deeper and deeper and deeper. I bring this up often. We talked with TCU our first year. We talked with Jamie, who writes about TCU, and he was like, the biggest thing with our transition was we didn't have the depth. We had guys who could play at the P5 level, but we just didn't have the depth once they got tired. And this is just a sign that, you got Chance Bryant in here. That's a guy who could play P5 football, P4 football now. And that's that depth aspect that you're kind of talking about. So Sam, what'd you notice about the 2 deep?
Yeah, Chance Bryant was going to be the thing I led off with at first. If you didn't get to that, obviously it sounds like it's a situational thing, but I mean, clearly, and not that we suspect they were, but clearly the reports of him having an awesome fall camp were not incorrect. Expect we'll see him at least in the field. Some FIU transfer, Eddie Walls III, starting at one of the end positions. Not really surprising there. Khalil Lafau, the Wazoo transfer, and the other side of him on the D line as well, with Carlos Allen. In between, also not surprising, Latravion McCutcheon. I would say he's an or starter with Brandon Mack at Jack. I expect we'll see. I mean, pass rushers, you use a lot of different pass rushers, so expect we'll see a healthy amount of both guys. Probably the least surprising thing, beyond stuff like Connor Wigman being first team quarterback and Carlos Allen and returning guys, Stephon Johnson being starters, was that all 3 of your top running backs, Sanford, Connors, and Burnett, were oars, because I think we knew we'd be seeing a lot of those 3 guys. Even probably Stacey Sneed was not on there, like that we'd be seeing a running back by committee, not because like you don't think all 3 of those guys are great, but because you really want to try to get Connors, Burnett, and Sanford all involved in the offense in a different way. And showing off what I think you rightly said in our offense preview episode, I think is your deepest unit. Certainly your deepest unit on offense, but maybe your deepest unit on the team at large. I can't joke about the kickoff specialist thing without at least mentioning it. Ethan Sanchez, the Old Dominion transfer, is your starter there. Zach Yoakum is the kickoff specialist, which he did for Notre Dame previously. Grad transferred here. I'm trying to think of anything else. One of the big questions we have at the defense was who'd be starting opposite Latrell McCutcheon at quarter, and that would be Will James, the Southern Miss transfer, who I think we would have had him as one of the top guys to potentially be starting there. Jordan Allen, the LSU transfer, starting for Blake Thompson at the weak side safety as well, or wide safety, excuse me, as well. I got my WS abbreviation incorrect there, but Sione Fotu and Jalen Gardner are probably your most regular stars as well. I mentioned Jalen Gardner when we previewed the linebackers, but probably gave him less time than other people. From what we've seen, I think Ryan Agoku has said this a few times. It sounds like they're going to ease Corey Platt back into playing, and that might be why you see him behind Jalen Garner right now with Christian Braithwaite, the redshirt freshman. Like, the guy hasn't played for almost 2 full seasons. You want to make sure he's right out there. You want to make sure you're not counting this guy to play an insane amount of snaps in his first game in almost 24 months.
Yeah, I totally understand that. You get him in there. I think you are right. I think probably one of the more interesting parts of the 2 deep. Like, I noticed it and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But now that you bring it up, I'm like, that actually is. You can definitely tell how happy the staff is with the running back room. You don't want to name a starter because you don't know what formation you're going to come out in. And I think that really has a lot to do with why those guys were listed or. I think at any point, depending on the play sheet, they always say they have the play script, your first 10, 20 offensive plays. Depending on what that looks like determines who's your starter and who's in at any given moment.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Bobby. We have one more football talk, something near and dear to our hearts. If you, the listener, thought Down with the Pickness was going anywhere, you're sorely mistaken. But we decided to change up the format a bit for this football season. Instead of Bobby and I betting fake money and determining the winner at the end of the season based on whoever had the most fake money, this year we're going to be picking 3 different things weekly for a set number of points. Our first pick is always going to be either the point spread or points total on that week's U of H game. This will always be worth 25 points. The second will be a team prop, basically us guessing things like U of H or its opponent's passing yards, rushing touchdowns, interceptions, that kind of thing as an over-under. That one's going to be worth slightly fewer points, 15 to be exact. And our third pick will just be a point spread or points total pick from any other game going on in the current week of college football. At the end of the season, the winner of the two of us will have both the bragging rights like Bobby does currently, and best of all, we'll get to make the other co-host do something he hates. Last year, Bobby understood that assignment very well, and by punishment was listening to the entirety of NSYNC's album Celebrity and reviewing it at the end of an episode after the football season. If I am able to dethrone Bobby and win this season's Down with the Pickness, he will have to watch Christian comedy and trick basketball shot YouTube channel Dude Perfect's new movie and immersive experience, Dude Perfect the Hero Tour, and then give us a review on a later podcast episode to be determining. If you're wondering how you came up with this, Sam, when I went and saw the new Naked Gun movie in theaters a couple weeks back, one of the before the previews ads was for that Dude Perfect movie, and I thought in real time, I'd rather do anything on this fucking earth that didn't involve having to watch that. And then I thought to myself, because Bobby and I had been talking, I think that evening, about the format and doing this before the first week and all that stuff, I thought to myself, Bobby might hate it even more than I did. Obviously, Bobby, you are free to not reveal your punishment to me if you win a second year in a row, like you did last year, and keep it a surprise until the time comes. I just figured since I already told it to you, I would reveal it to the audience.
Yeah, and I'll reveal mine. I was in the golf store the other day, and this was probably a couple of weeks ago, and there was a song playing, and I said, "This is the worst song I've ever heard in my life." And then I was like, you know what? Maybe I wasn't in the right mindset. Wasn't as bad as I thought, right? Because sometimes you're in a store, you hear parts of songs, and so I turned it on. And buddy, it's worse when you're paying attention to it. It is a song called Truck Bed by somebody named Hardy. Now, what I will tell you is then I went home and I was like, you know how like sometimes you listen to, you're like, I hate this so much that I need to hear more of it to see how much I hate it. So I went and looked up the album. And buddy, let me tell you, not good either. I got through about a third of the songs on the album. It's bad. So Sam, you'll be doing another review of the album The Mockingbird and the Crow by Hardy, which might I add is in all caps. And the genre is country/rock. And if there's one thing I know about you, bud, you're gonna love that. So yeah, that will be your punishment this year. You better hope you win.
It sounds like I need to. You know what? Sometimes you really don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think you had a great idea last year, so I understand going back to that. I do.
Yeah.
All right, you ready to make some picks?
Let's do it, buddy.
All right, so my spread or total pick on the U of H game is going to be your Houston Cougars minus 22.5 points. And I will say to justify my pick, last season, the one time where U of H played a true low end of the FBS opponent, this was Rice, the Cougs would have covered that 22.5 points. To me, I think it's basically a consensus for anyone making predictions about U of H this season that the Cougars will at least be somewhat improved from last season. So I don't think it's crazy to think that U of H could cover essentially a 22.5 point spread against an FCS team, even a good one like SFA. So that's my pick. Bobby, what'd you go with for this one?
Yeah, I actually took SFA plus 22.5. And the reason being is not that I think this is going to be a close game, particularly close or anything like that. But this really feels like a staff that brought in a bunch of transfers. They're going to want to see a bunch of guys. And the Cougs are going to be up 28, something like that. And I'm not going to call it a garbage time touchdown, but the game will be decided. And you're going to see SFA go down against, the fourth string freshmen that have 4 games to play. This will be a game that they play in and go down, score a touchdown against those guys and cut it to 21-20, something like that. I really see the Cougs winning this game by 20, 21 points, just because I think the Cougs are going to call off the Dogs pretty early, and SFA is going to get a couple of touchdowns that they probably wouldn't against the starters.
I will say, working against me, I don't think Willie Fritz is a run up the score for style points kind of guy. I know he's a former Sam Houston coach, but I don't think the Battle of the Piney Woods hate is so deep in Willie's heart that he's gonna go for like a 1989 SMU margin.
What if he
here.
did though? What if he was like, I hate the Jacks, and he just was
It would be so fucking funny, man. I could absolutely see a scenario where U of H is up 42-14, and then naturally, like late in the fourth quarter, at 42-14, you put in a bunch of guys who are probably going to redshirt on defense just to see how they look against game action and give a touchdown there, because it doesn't matter really in the grand scheme of things if you win this by 21 or 28. So no, I can see it, but I still feel reasonably confident in my pick. For my second pick,
I can't argue with your rationale behind yours either. I'm kind of like, you get up 35 and then you give up 1. It's like, well, that's 28. So I'm totally on board with yours as well.
Very much setting myself up to be way too, even though there's no actual money on this, way too invested in a fourth quarter series. We're up 42-14 because I don't want to listen to Hardy's, was it the Scarecrow and the...
Hold on. I still have it up. The Mockingbird and the Crow.
The Mockingbird and the Crow. Just because I'm so desperately wanting to avoid doing that I'm screaming and cursing at some of our 2025 football signees as they, going to play their first college game. So for my second pick, looking at the team props, considering this is an FBS versus FCS game, finding anything other than the point spread and points total from people who actually do sportsbook stuff is challenging. So Bobby and I, between the two of us, agreed on some over-under team numbers for the categories of pass yards, rush yards, passing and rushing touchdowns, interceptions by a defense for each team, and then total turnovers forced by each team's defense. So my pick for this one, Bobby, is I think the Houston Cougar defense will force more than the number we said, 2.5 turnovers on Thursday night. Specifically, I think the Cougars will have 2 interceptions and recover a fumble. Bobby, what'd you pick on this one?
All right, so we have on here passing yards by SFA at 251.5. I think that's going to go under. I think it's going to be something like 200, 225, something like that. So I am going to go under SFA passing yards of 251.5.
For the listeners, I kind of based that on SFA. It was a slightly lower version of SFA's 2024 season average was how I came up with that number.
Yeah, and I also wanted to be clear that Sam and I agreed on these numbers. We didn't know what the other one was going to pick. We just were kind of like, this is what.
Yeah, we're going off the same board.
Like. Yep, we're going off the same board here.
So for my third and final pick, I wanted to pick something from one of the more compelling games in the week 1 slate, but also my desire not to, I didn't even know my punishment was going to be this awful album, but my desire to not lose to you a second season in a row, Bobby, won out. And I think I went with what was a boring and easy pick. I took Arizona State minus 28.5 against their own in-state FCS opponent, the Northern Arizona Lumberjacks. Bobby will know personally that I have my doubts about ASU repeating as Big 12 champs, but I also don't see them having any problem covering that number pretty easily.
Yeah, hard to argue with that one. For me, I wanted to pick a game that I am oddly confident about. It is a team in the Big 12 that I do not have any faith in this year. And that is Nebraska minus 6.5 at Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati is okay. And Nebraska and I think Cincinnati has quite possibly the worst coach in the P4. I can't say all of FBS because Trent Dilfer's still coaching at UAB, but if I'm just looking at like pure talent and coaching, I think you got a battle of probably my second favorite coach in FBS versus the second worst coach in FBS to me. So I'm going to go Nebraska -6.5 there. Just a little quick shout out, just real quick. One that I almost went with was Ohio State and Texas over their point total. I think it's like, I want to say their point total is like 48, and that just seemed like kind of a crazy one. I was going to go over that. But then Nebraska, Cincinnati just called to me saying, hey, look, you can pick against us, and it kind of makes sense. So I did that.
A good line value too, because yesterday it was 7, but you get that half point, and like I think I wouldn't touch it at 7, but 6.5. No, I think I'm definitely sold on your case there. I will say you are relying on a Daniel Holgerson offense now to score enough points in 2025 to get you something you need, and I don't need to tell you the perils of that.
Is I actually forgot that he's their OC, and now I kind of regret the pick.
I mean, but they have the 5-star kid who looks and sometimes acts like Patrick Mahomes, so maybe
Raiola,
that
right?
winning,
Dylan Raiola.
Yep, Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
The combination of him and Dana could get you in a nice place for a few points here.
We have the great value version of that Texas Tech team. It's Dylan Raiola,
Cliff's old coach who kind of has fallen on hard times, and Dylan Raiola who kind of acts like and sometimes does the pregame routine of Patrick Mahomes.
The up and up version.
Man.
All right, sorry.
No easy transition for this one, but a topic we're going to close tonight. Very excited about. Houston Cougar Volleyball is kicking off their 2025 season in the Research Triangle of North Carolina, a 3-gamer at Duke's multi-team event. We're going to talk the 2025 Cougar Volleyball season, generally though as well. Look at the entire team in addition to the opening weekend of action from David Rare's program. You took somewhat of a step back last year, but I'm still curious. I'll never know the answer to it, but I'm curious how different that all would have looked if Kellen Morin hadn't suffered a season-ending injury before any 2024 matches were played. I don't think Morin's absence entirely made the difference between U of H being an NCAA program and one in the bottom half of the Big 12, but I'm not also overstating her value in saying that U of H probably has a few more conference wins if you have her at the net and healthy. But maybe serendipitous now that Morin comes back healthy with some athletes in her position group who are more experienced for having to step up in her absence. And also, this will be the first time in a very long time that we've talked about Cougar Volleyball without All-American libero Kate Georgiadis being a part of the team. Same for setter Andy Cook. You have some other notable graduations like Katie Corelli and Angela Grieve. Also, your co-starter with Andy Cook at the setter position, Rebecca Ricasson as well. That does sound like a lot of impactful players who have graduated because those were all to varying degrees.
It was.
Yeah. And not going to come here and understate the value of those players who are no longer in college. But I'm still weirdly optimistic, Bobby, about what Cougar Volleyball will have really at all position groups in 2025. That was kind of my overarching takeaway.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to do a preview without talking about what the Cougs lost heading into this year. You named them, but you lose 2 future Cougar Hall of Famers, or what do we call it? Hall of Honor,
I think.
Yeah, I feel like it's Hall of Honor. Those are some of the best players to ever come through this program. Andy Cook and Kate Georgiadis. That's not to take anything away from Katie Corelli and Angela Grieve, but Kate Georgiadis and Andy Cook definitely leaving hurts, and those are going to be the big questions heading into the year. How do you replace Georgiadis, Cook, Corelli, and Angela Grieve, right? You're losing a lot of production off last year's team. To your point, Kellen Morin is back healthy. We believe. We haven't been told differently. So really excited for that. But yeah, those will be the how you replace them are the number one questions heading into 2025.
And the good news is David Rare and this coaching staff have done a great job historically in the transfer portal. Georgiadis, you'll remember, despite how long she was in the Cougar program, actually started her college career at TCU. Some other standouts from recent years, Kenna Sauer, Isabel Toit, Kennedy Warren, Katie Corelli, and Angela Grieve are all other high-level transfers that the staff has brought in. The position you're probably going to be depending on transfers the most as outside hitter. But I think the good news is that the staff brought in some obvious impact transfers with, I think, 3 transfers that Coug fans should know about specifically. You have Brenya Reed coming in from James Madison, had a real breakout junior season last year. She was first team all Sun Belt, 18th nationally in kills per set, and also second among Sun Belt players in conference in kills per set. What really caught my eye, though, is Reed was also a consistent defensive contributor. She averaged just under 2 digs per set as well. One of those things I remember that was so valuable about Abby Jackson and Kenneth Sauer, obviously offensive impact players, but they also, they were two-way players. They defended as well. And hopefully Reed follows in the footsteps of those 2 great recent program alums. Hallie Schroeder returns to her home state of Texas after 2 seasons playing for Boston College, where she led the Eagles in kills and kills per set last season. Played in a very good volleyball league. Did a quick scan also. BC wasn't a terrible team. They were kind of lower middle of the standings in a really stacked volleyball conference. Another thing that really stood out to me was her consistency last season. She had 24 matches with double-digit kills. That was probably what jumped out the most from looking at her college resume. And last but not least is Alyssa Gonzalez, another transfer who's coming back home to Texas. She played at Wichita State last season. She redshirted her first college season at TCU 2 years ago. She was less efficient offensively. Like, you look at her hitting percentage, less efficient offensively than Schroeder and Reed, but just was second on her team in kills. Kills per set was in the was All-American Conference tournament, which Wichita State won and punched their ticket to the NCAA tournament by winning. She did that in her first season on the court. That's pretty impressive. I think I'd buy long-term that Gonzalez is going to be a multi-year impact player. In this program, you also have Avery Shemitis returning. She saw a lot of action last season, and Lily Barron, who also saw a good amount of action last year as a freshman. That's 3 players plus Tara Greenberry, who comes into the Cougar program as the top high school recruit from the state of Missouri, who are playing outside hitter. You're probably not rotating all 6 of them in, but I think I'm pretty convinced that you can find 3 or 4 good outside hitters from the 6 players that I've mentioned here, at least in passing.
Yeah, I think, you get concerned just anytime you're worried that your outside hitters, you lose some, but then you bring in just some talent. You could tell Coach Rare wanted to improve his outside hitter situation heading into the season. You named a lot of people there. Schroeder, her freshman year, played in 108 sets, recorded 249 kills. Last year, Boston College, she played 103 sets, so you'll notice 5 less sets, and had 342 kills. Now, Sam, I'm not a volleyball expert, but more kills in less sets seems to be good, right? Like, again, not an expert. I can't tell you that much, though.
I would concur on that, yeah.
Yeah. As far as Reed, you saw her rank 18th in the country for kills per set. Got to be excited about that. Yes, it is a little bit of a step up in competition for her, but nothing that seems to be anything too crazy. Maybe she goes from 18th to 50th. All right, cool. I'll take it. And also you mentioned her, you brought in Alyssa Gonzalez last year as a redshirt freshman. She saw plenty of action at Wichita State, a traditionally solid volleyball program. I don't think you would call them, a world beater by any means, but they're a solid program. If you can get playing time there, that is always good. But with some of the older transfers that you got, plus returning sophomore Lily Barron and Avery
Shemitis.
Thank you. My handwriting is terrible. I was going through this quick. Avery Shemitis. I do question if Alyssa Gonzalez will probably see a lot of action this year as a sophomore. Maybe you play her a little bit, try to have her learn under some of the experienced players ahead of her.
No doubt. At the net, you have middle blocker Kellen Morin, who I've already mentioned, back after missing all of the last season with a knee injury. We've already talked about her a bit. Worth a reminder, she was an every match starter in the 22 and 23 seasons. 2 seasons ago, she set the program's single season record for hitting percentage at 388 as top 5 in blocks per set season in modern U of H program history.
Is that good, Sam?
It's pretty good. There will be very few players in all of college volleyball coming off an injury who will be a more welcome return to their team than Morin will be. Also, you have 5th-year senior Barakat Rahman back after being asked to kind of step into Morin's role almost in 2024, along with Addison Pohl, who started 13 matches as a freshman last season and hopefully comes into her second year in the program a bit better for now having a year of D1 experience under her belt.
You named everyone that I would have named, but I expect a big year from Bearcat Ramon here. She played in every set last year, and at the couple of matches I went to, I went to that tournament at SMU, and I think I went to Baylor. I can't exactly remember. I was at that. She really stood out to me. She was super athletic and just, exploded to the ball. You also pointed out you get Kellen Morin back this season. And so really excited about what's going to happen in the middle for the Cougs. Now, Sam, we've previewed two positions that we think is going to be pretty good. Where I think if you squint and you see a little bit of a problem, though, is one that's kind of hard to ignore, and that's going to be at the libero position. You lose an All-American, one of the best players to play in this program with Kate Georgiadis. Some of the best plays that I've seen in Cougar volleyball history, including going over the table in the NCAA tournament. You lose her, and you didn't really bring in a proven player. I think you're really leaning on senior Alana Torres Rivera. The hope is with Georgiadis. I think the hope is, right? I haven't heard this from anybody. But I think the hope is with Georgiadis remaining on staff, joining the staff and becoming your director of volleyball operations, that she really mentors and leads Torres Riviera to a great season. Sam, what did you think about the libero position?
Yeah, I think U of H's ceiling this season depends on what you get out of libero and also setter, which we'll get to in a little bit. The positions with mostly new faces at both of those spots. Obviously, I think Alana Torres Rivera is going to be your opener starter, but not a guarantee that Jillian Pitts, a freshman coming in who has a really strong pedigree, doesn't eventually take the job. Pitts was a 5-star recruit by VBRecruiter.com, an All-American both as a prep and club player, 3-time state champion in Texas's largest private school division. Shout out Taps there. Won a junior national championship with her club volleyball team. Even if you're not a volleyball evaluation talent expert, we aren't. Pitts just has the profile of a player who you'd expect to play a bunch as a freshman. I think it's the ideal situation. I mean, obviously, you're going to be slightly worse for losing Kate Georgiadis. That was always going to be the case once she ran out of eligibility. But you have a veteran for a backup who played a lot with Kate Georgiadis and a freshman whose recruiting pedigree suggests by the time she's a veteran that she has an All-American ceiling. So obviously some short-term pain there. And I agree. You only go as far as what you're able to get out of a really critical position. Your defensive specialist out there, as you will with Alana Torres Rivera and Jillian Pitts this year. But I think I still like what the Cougars have there. Obviously, you're never going to replicate Kate Georgiadis, both by person, exactly replicating what she did, or in the aggregate with multiple players. But I'm still excited what the Cougars have. We'll obviously very much miss seeing Kate out there. Like it's going to be weird not seeing a player wearing the slightly different libero colored jersey number 17 out there with the Cougars. It's been a long time since that's been the case. I mean, shout out to Katie. I had to remember it. Katie Carbo. Shout out to Katie Carbo, who is the libero in David Rare's first season here. But obviously, Kate Georgiadis, hard to replace. But I do like what the Cougars have here, even acknowledging all the things that you said.
Yeah.
So we'll go to this. I was going to say.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Go ahead. Take us to setter, buddy. Take us to setter.
Worth a quick volleyball lesson. We usually do something like this at the start of the season. If you were a volleyball expert, my explanation will probably be woefully inadequate. But if you're someone who's very new to the sport, I think you'll at least somewhat appreciate this. We'll do it for the setter and libero positions. The setter is the quarterback or the point guard, if you want a football or basketball comparison, of your offensive attack in volleyball. Usually, they're the player who gets the second contact to the ball on their side of the net, and usually the second contact is a setup for one of the attacking players to spike it into the area on the opponent's side. Though sometimes at a change of pace, you'll see the setter fake like they're going to set the ball, and then we'll hit it over the net to try to catch an opponent off guard. For most of the past 3 seasons, U of H has run a 6-2 rotation with 2 alternating setters on the court. In the 2 NCAA seasons, that was Annie Cook and Morgan Yonda, and in the last season, it was Cook and Rebecca Rakasin. Libero is basically your defensive specialist who could be subbed without counting against your per set limit that you have on making subs, and a player who has more freedom of movement on the court, but is also very limited in what they're allowed to do attacking wise, and can also do some of the same stuff as your setter. If you ever watched a volleyball match, you'll notice, kind of like I alluded to a second ago, that the libero wears a slightly different colored jersey than their teammates. Bobby, do you think that's a decent explanation?
I think it works for me, bud.
So at center, all three players in the current roster are new to the U of H program, either because they are freshmen or in the case of Lottie Scully, played their prior college careers elsewhere. This is a similar situation to what U of H has at libero. You have a veteran, Lottie Scully, who I just mentioned, and a star freshman recruit here. Unlike libero, though, we have where you're kind of figuring out, like, is it going to be more Torres Rivera? Is it going to be more Pitts? You have precedent here, which I just said, of David Rare playing two setters, and no guarantee that'll be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Scully and then freshman Tennyson Fry playing together a decent amount. This season, Fry comes in from Meridian, Ohio, which I looked it up. It's a suburb of Boise. And the same service that rated Jillian Pitts as a 5-star also rated Fry as a 4-star, adding to my belief that we'll see lineups with Fry and Scully is the fact that in her UH bio, it mentions Fry also playing outside hitter as a prep player at 6'1". She's also not too short to play at the net as well. She has almost, I wouldn't say the prototypical, but more like the outside hitter build, maybe than your average setter. Scully comes in after playing the last 3 seasons for Binghamton, where she was an all-conference selection at setter all 3 seasons there. Last year was first team all-conference and the America East Conference's setter of the year. Certainly she'll be taking a big step up in competition, but I would say still the resume of a player you would expect to see transferring up for her final college season.
Yeah, that was my big takeaway when I was looking at Lottie Scully. Actually, kind of funny here. My last line in my notes on
You're muted.
I don't know how that happened. Sorry, man.
You're good. Give it a little bit so I can find this. And
yeah, of course. That's weird. I think I hit my space bar with my note.
You're good.
It's really funny that you said that, because the last line in my notes of Lottie Scully and the setters is, it's clearly a step up in competition, but Coach Rare seems to believe in the talent. So, yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of Lottie Scully. And yeah, I also had Tennyson Fry as the incoming freshman who's going to be that second center that Coach Rare kind of unorthodoxly loves to use. You know, it was, you guys did an interview with him, what was that, 4 years ago now, 3 years ago?
I think it's seasons? 2. I think it was before the 23 seasons. We had him on during COVID, and then we had him on, I think, 2 seasons ago.
Yeah, because I wasn't I wasn't a part of the podcast when that happened. So it was really interesting that he mentioned that and that he liked the options that gave. So yeah, I think the center position is one that you're questioning a little bit, but the talent he brought in Lottie Scully and Tennyson Fry seems to be pretty good, and it seems Coach Rare is pretty confident in it.
Would agree. So quick thoughts on the Cougars opening weekend. At first, when I saw Duke on there, it's just like, okay, well, it's at Duke, so you're playing a true road match in this case, and it's an ACC team, and I was like, I don't know, I just kind of assumed that, oh, Duke volleyball is good. Duke volleyball was worse than the Boston College team that
Yes.
Hallie Schroeder was on. Like, Duke volleyball was not good. Like, Duke volleyball, I looked, I was like, did they have just a really uncharacteristically bad season? It was like, no, not really. They just haven't been a terribly good program. Still, it's a true road game. Acknowledging that challenge, I still think, and that's going to be the Saturday game at 4 p.m. Central. Cougars will be opening Friday at 2 p.m. against FIU, and then playing Sunday morning 10:30 a.m. against Bryant. I'm not going to say much about FIU and Bryant. I think the Cougars should be able to win those, and frankly, I'd be surprised if they dropped more than a set combined from those two. Duke will be a little more interesting. I think it's one the Cougars should expect to win, but again, you're playing a true road one at Cameron Indoor. Not saying they'll have the Cameron Indoor basketball environment for that, but maybe that's a little more challenging. But that was just my general thought as I looked at these 3 teams. FIU and Bryant, very confident those are going to be Cougar wins. Duke, I think, is one the Cougs should still expect to win. Even coming off a uncharacteristic season last year, I think with Kellen Moore and what the Cougars have coming back, this is one the team should expect to win. And probably the one I'm most interested in, obviously, from this coming weekend.
Yeah, I think this coming weekend you're going to want to see 2-1, 3-0 to really get you excited about this team here.
Won't preview it, but we'll just also note for Cougar fans that the Flo Hyman Classic is next Thursday through Saturday on campus. Would very much encourage you to get over there and watch David Rare's Cougar volleyball program. We'll talk about that one a bit more in depth on our next episode.
Yeah, and just kind of some other overarching thoughts on the season, if you'll allow me, Sam.
Yeah, man, go for it.
Cougs were picked a shocking 11th place in the preseason poll for the Big 12. I thought that was kind of weird. And then they received votes in the poll, getting the 7th highest amount of points in the coaches poll leading into the season, the top 25 poll there. So someone's wildly wrong, and I lean more towards the Big 12 poll being off. Kind of looking at the schedule, you got an exciting matchup, an exciting weekend when you travel to Kentucky for a Purdue and a game against Kentucky. You are looking at Purdue preseason number 15, Kentucky preseason number 7. So just kind of when you're looking at the non-conference schedule, that's pretty exciting. Looking at the conference schedule, I kind of went up and down it just to kind of see what I thought. You split home and home with most of the good teams. If you don't split home and home with them, for one good team, you go there, you get a home match against another really good team. So the schedule seems pretty balanced. I think somewhere 6 to 9, maybe 10 is where you can kind of expect this Cougar team to finish in the Big 12 this year, just kind of looking at everything.
Yeah, I thought 11 seemed low. This is a very good volume. This is one of the best Big 12 sports that we get to talk about. I think up there with the basketballs and softball for being a truly good Big 12 sport generally. Like soccer. Mm-hmm. That one of the reasons I'm excited about soccer, not to go cross sports here, is that if we're much better than we expect, us being top 8 in the conference isn't absolutely crazy, because this isn't a great soccer conference. This is a great volleyball conference.
Yeah, it's a really, really good volleyball conference.
But I agree with you. I think somewhere between 7 and 10. That's my preseason expectation here.
Yep.
All right, buddy, take us home.
All right, well, that is it for this wonderful episode, because we got to preview 2 Cougar sports. Well, I mean, we'd already been previewing football, but, we actually got to talk about an upcoming game for Houston Cougar football. We got to preview another one of our favorite sports, and we got a victory versus the Longhorns in Austin. What a week for a podcast. These are the weeks that you love doing this podcast, right, Sam?
Oh, yeah.
And if you have enjoyed the last hour of content as well, we thank you so much for listening. If you have any feedback for us, you can find us on social media, Twitter, SH Podcast. That's Pod, P-A-W-D. You never know if someone's a first-time listener, Sam. If they want to find us on Blue Sky, if you want to find us on Blue Sky, you can find us there at podcast.bsky.social, also P-A-W-D. If you don't want to use social media, that's awesome. Good for you. You can email us, shpodcast@gmail.com. And if you want to throw some of your money to this podcast, like Sam said earlier, it's a labor of love. We both got full-time jobs. We do this kind of as a fun thing. If you want to throw some money at us, we'd highly appreciate it. You can find us on Patreon. We got some cool content coming out this football season with post-game reaction shows. Maybe not directly post-game, but you're going to get them within 24, 48 hours. Depends on who's traveling to games and all of that, if we're traveling or out of town or something like that. So we hope to give you some really cool content with that. You can find us on Patreon at SH Podcast. And Sam, I think that's it. What do we always say, buddy?
Go Cougs.
All right. Go Cougs! Let's go!